The Cleveland Browns beat the Baltimore Ravens 29-24 and may have just turned around their season. They still are 2-6 on the season, and this might be an overreaction, but that felt good to watch the Browns win yesterday. In that win over the Ravens, the Browns scored 20 points, threw for over 300 yards, and had 400 yards as a team, all for the first time this season. They right now are sitting at the 11th seed in the AFC and are 2.5 games back of the Chargers, and they play them next week. But even with 2 wins on the season, the Browns are in a pretty good position to still make a wildcard spot. The rest of their schedule is not too hard, especially their next 5 games. They play the Chargers next week, then they play the Saints, the Steelers, the Broncos, and the Steelers again. Those are 5 very winnable games. And then they play the Chiefs, which is most likely a loss. Then the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Ravens. And all of those are winnable as well. So I could realistically see the Browns finishing out the season 7-2. I do feel bad for Deshaun Watson tearing his Achilles, but he was just not good this season, and even in the past 3 years with the Browns. Jameis Winston should have been starting from week 1. And if Jameis Winston did start from week 1, the Browns could easily have been 6-2. They would have probably lost no matter what against the Cowboys. Then they won week 2. Then versus the Giants, they only lost by 6. Then they lost by 4 to the Raiders. Then the Commanders was a legit loss by 21. But the Eagles was a 4-point loss. The Bengals was a 7-point loss. And that game came down to the wire. And then this week we won with Jameis. So if the Browns offense does play like that the rest of the season, I could definitely see them going 9-8. But this last week versus the Ravens, the Browns offense looked great. Jameis Winston went 27-41, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So in the last 5 quarters, Jameis Winston has thrown for 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Then in Nick Chubb's second game of the season, he had 52 yards and averaged 3.3 yards per carry, and even had a 15-yard run in this game. So he was much improved from his first game, where he only averaged 2 yards per carry, but again, he's still shaking off that rust of not playing for a year and a half. Then Cedric Tillman had a breakout game, having 7 receptions for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns, and those 2 touchdowns were his first 2 touchdowns of his career. So in the last 2 games, he has 15 receptions for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Elijah Moore had 8 receptions for 85 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 5 receptions for 79 yards. And David Njoku, 5 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. And in his last 2 games, he has 15 receptions, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But even the play calling looked a lot better with Ken Dorsey calling the plays. Like on that 38-yard touchdown that the Browns took their lead on, I don't think Kevin Stefanski would have called up that play. And I know for sure Deshaun Watson would have either not thrown that ball or he would have overthrown it. But even in this Kevin Stefanski offense, we've seen this before with bigger quarterbacks. They just play better. Jameis Winston, 6'4", and a pocket passer. Then Joe Flacco, he's a pocket passer and he's 6'6". And even a few years ago, Jacoby Brissett played great in this Kevin Stefanski offense. Then even now with Ken Dorsey calling plays, he had a lot of success the last few years with Josh Allen as his quarterback. And again, Josh Allen's 6'5" and a pocket passer. But Jameis Winston's still 30 years old, and he's on a pretty cheap contract of just $4 million. So this offseason, they need to sign him long term, and he could potentially be your quarterback for the next 8 to 10 years. Again, this could be just an overreaction, but it was still fun to watch the Browns win and a very entertaining game. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.